Now to the narrative elements, and we start with narrative styles, which is how this screenplay fits into other screenplays as far as putting it in a box, which you really can't. But one of them that it fits into is hyperrealism. These long, unbroken takes on this page and on the screen with raw dialogue that's unpolished. This is Sean Baker's style, and it really resonates. The characters, they pause, they stumble, they talk over each other. Another one is multiple perspectives. Annie is, of course, the main focus, but we do get other perspectives throughout the screenplay and the film where they break away from her and we get to learn what other people are thinking and doing. There's scenes that focus on Yvonne and Igor and Diamond and Toros and the other guy, Garnick. And another one is Ambiguous Ending. Nothing here is wrapped up in a bow. We get a unique slice of a person's life that's very interesting, and then we're cast out. And we don't know. We don't know what happens next with Annie. We don't know if there's a happy ending. What we do know is that she grew. She started one way, and she ended another way. She grew into her agency. I want to give you a couple of tones. One is the gritty truth. Baker gives us this realism, and it feels almost voyeuristic to peek into ANORA's life. And I'm not talking about the sex. I'm talking about her struggles to gain respect and agency in a world that doesn't respect her or her profession. An example of this is her work-life balance. She works at a gentleman's club, and maybe there's a fantasy of how fun that would be to get all this attention and be able to perform and make so much money. But the reality is she has an overbearing manager. She has difficult coworkers. She has disrespectful clients. She works long hours. She eats lunch breaks, Tupperware lunch breaks. So really, it's not much different than working at the convenience store. Well, maybe a little. Another tone is tenderness. Annie is so real to us because she is tough. She is guarded. She is also tender, empathetic. She humanizes everybody around her. She looks at them and listens. Feel like even though we don't know a lot about her as far as her backstory, other than that her mom lives in Miami, she has a sister who we barely read about, we still feel like we know her just because of how she is presented on the page. And the final tone would be tension and melancholy. There is a current of tension throughout the film. For me, it's the melancholy. I really felt that. Reading this screenplay to me feels like a Sunday hangover where you feel guilty about something you did the night before. It just feels sort of like I'm seeing something I shouldn't be seeing. And I'm not talking about the sex at all. I'm talking about the vulnerability and the deep personalization of Annie. It's so intimate that I almost feel like I shouldn't be watching it. Imagine your writing eliciting that sort of emotional response from a random reader. You sit down at your computer, 12-point courier, and then years later, someone watches the film and has these intense emotional reactions. So that is why we write. I identified two major themes in this screenplay. One is agency and self-determination. At the core here is Annie's struggle to define her own life. She faces these overwhelming judgments, yet remains defiant and rejects this idea that her choices make her less deserving than anyone else. And she demands respect. Another is social expectations. Don't get it twisted. This is a war of social class. Annie embodies the struggle of the working class sex worker, which is stigmatized in society. And at the same time, her foe is a Russian oligarch family worth $40 billion. The internal conflicts going on here are authenticity versus assimilation. Annie struggles to maintain herself as she enters Yvonne's world, something so far from what she even knew was possible. And she feels this pressure to let go of herself and assimilate into his life, into his world. And then when she finally becomes vulnerable enough to do that, they don't want her. There's stability versus independence, where she's drawn into Ivan's financial security and the safety that comes along with that. But she struggles because that also means she has to give up part of who she is, her own independence. And then I really like this one, love versus pragmatism. Annie develops genuine feelings for Ivan. That's true. They both do at some point. But she's also aware that this is still a transactional relationship, and that's all she knows. For him, it's transactional because being with her means he gets to be American and put up the middle finger to his parents. For her, it's transactional because she is hustling so hard all the time to try to have money, have respect, see herself as at a certain place in the world. And he gives her that instantly. The external conflicts are pretty easy here. You have Annie versus Ivan's family, a clash over expectations and culture and respect. You've got working class versus privilege. She's amazed in the beginning by the opulence of what life is like for Ivan. You have independence versus dependence. Annie's personal independence clashes with the societal expectations of Ivan's wealth. And then love versus power. The authentic connection Annie and Ivan have is tested against an imbalance of power, and it fails. It doesn't work out. And we'll look at story structure. Really it fits into several different models, but we'll do the 5-act structure for this one. Act 1 is the setup, and we have the introduction of Annie, this ambitious 23-year-old sex worker that works at an upscale Manhattan club. The inciting incident is that she meets Ivan, this 21-year-old child, and he is a child of a $40 billion Russian oligarch. Ivan invites Annie into his world with life-changing opportunities. Act 2, the rising action. She begins to adapt, let her guard down. The building conflict is cultural and class differences between them starts to show up, becomes very obvious. And Annie likes what is happening and tries to pretend that the relationship is not transactional, but it is in fact on both sides a very transactional relationship. Act 3 is the turning point. They get married. Ivan's family learns about the union and they call in the dogs. Toros, who's just sort of been in the background up until now, they start getting involved in the situation. It gets out of control. Tensions rise. Ivan flees and leaves Annie, which was ridiculous. But she refuses to break down. She shows how tough she is. No one's going to break her. Most of the movie occurs during this third act as the gang gets together and they start looking for Ivan. Act 4 is the falling action. And that's when they learn that Ivan is with Diamond at her former club. And they go and find him, and his parents are going to arrive from Russia. And Annie fiercely defends the marriage, defends herself, stands up to the mother, shows how tough and strong-willed she is. But the class difference is too much, and it is impossible for what she wants. And then there's Act 5, the resolution. She sees her relationship with Ivan for what it really is, even though that is very painful. And Annie appreciates her handler, Igor, and feels obligated to initiate another transactional relationship because that's her safe place. But he shows her that he values her at a deeper level and that she's worth more than that. And then there's the ambiguous ending. She presents an emotional pain, but maintains and grows into her agency.